Streets and Scholars, Alex Alonso and FG, bringing you another banger. What's been going on, F?
Yeah, what's going on with it, Alex?
I know you was tapped in with a little bit of football over the weekend. Earlier this week, it seemed to be a little tragedy in the NFL, but I don't really know the details at this point.
Well, man, I specifically was watching the game, man, and it happened, and I believe the guy named Damar Hamlin, and a 24-year-old, man, Buffalo Bills player, went into cardiac arrest after, didn't even seem like a hard hit or nothing, bro, and I hate to see things like that in any athlete, any sport, you know what I mean? But the guy's in ICU right now, man. He is in a critical condition. I'm hoping he pulled through.
Now, I was watching the clip. He was the one that was making the tackle. He was doing the hitting.
No doubt. And he
usually the person getting hit is the one that's injured.
No doubt, but he made a hit, and the ball carrier, kind of, hit him as well. But to see a player go into cardiac arrest at 24-year-old on a football field over a hit that was an average hit, I couldn't explain that. I don't think nobody can.
Well, it is unusual that the guy that's doing the hitting is the one that gets hurt, especially, I watched it quite a few times. I was trying to figure out if something weird happened, but I couldn't tell.
I couldn't tell either, man. I didn't even know what was hurt actually until they came back and said, once I seen him doing CPR on him, I knew it was bad. So, they say he, his heart actually went out right there on the field. And they gave him CPR, brought his heart rate back, man, and then it was crazy.
Now, do things like this, I know you're a big football guy, and, I've never really been a big football person. In fact, when my kids were of the age, I deliberately left them out of football. I put them in baseball and soccer, and my daughter played golf. Do you think this is a football issue?
Well, this is the thing about it. I played football since I was 7 years old. I was a head coach, a youth football head coach for 6 years, vice president of our organization in Compton. Football advocate through and through all my life. Grew up watching the NFL. Seen hits where, paralysis was endured in a hit. I've seen people, break limbs in a hit. Football is a violent sport. But at the same time, they take measures and precautions, like they dummy down a lot of the ways you could even hit people now, But this incident, to me, Alex, was it wasn't a dirty hit. It wasn't somebody did something extra, I always thought in order for you to go into cardiac arrest, you had to have some kind of heart issues. Tell me something different if I'm wrong, but usually, you have some clogged arteries or high cholesterol or some, heart issues already. I've never seen a player go into cardiac arrest from football. So this is something totally new, and it's hard to just blame it on football.
Now, did you hear the backlash that Skip Bayless received? The dude that's the co-host with Shannon Sharp, he was saying things like he can't believe they would stop a game. I've seen many injuries before. People is calling Skip kind of heartless and insensitive, where a dude almost died on the field and he's expecting the game to go on. But I don't recall ever having a game stopped either.
The thing about it, but you never had a guy heart stop either. With a broke leg, Alex, you carry him to the sideline. It's a sad issue. They say a prayer or whatever, and they keep on playing. The game do go on. Concussions, where a guy is knocked out, he regained his conscience. They help him walk to the sideline or whatever. Or even in certain forms of back issues where they even had to be carted off the field. No, a game didn't stop. But when you're in the middle of the football field and, they pumping on this guy hard to restore, the toll that it takes on his friends that's on that team, the toll that it takes on his coaches, people who know him personally, now you're in a different emotional state as a player. So if you go on and play this game and you think about your homie, because I believe Stephon Diggs actually went to the hospital, they didn't want to let him in. He started talking shit and they let him in. They probably were personal friends. So for Stephon Diggs to go on and play this game, bro, thinking about his homie, his head is not in the game. That can lead him to get hurt as well. So them stopping the game, for me, I had already called it. I was sitting there watching and I said, I believe they won't even finish. Well before they stopped it, I said they won't even finish this game. It was just too tragic.
Can you remember any other time where a game was actually stopped from an injury?
Stopped, but not stopped to canceled in the middle of a game. No, I haven't.
So, what's your whole take on Skip? Because I saw a lot of people this week kind of going in on him hard, like he's just some heartless dude. And I don't know if he was just thinking how football is normally played, or if this is a cold white guy.
Well, the thing about it is, I listen to Skip and Shannon, and Skip a Cowboy fan, but he do get under my skin sometime, Him and Shannon had just got into it not too long ago, and I was on Shannon's side on that one. I read what he said. I didn't hear what he said. And the way he said it, I would have had to hear how he said it in order to interpret it, because just the mere words of he didn't recall where a game was stopped. How are they going to go on? This is a crucial game. It's a crucial game going into the playoffs, last game of the season, if I'm not mistaken, or one more after this. How can they stop a game like this and still go on with the playoff picture? How did you say that? Did you say it in a condescending way? Did you say it in an I don't care way? Or did you just asking the question, and when people read it, they took it a certain way? See, I would have to actually hear how he said it, Alex.
Now, a cardiac arrest and whatever led up to this situation for Mr. Hamlin from the Buffalo Bills, it seems like if I'm in his family, if I love this person, I don't think he could ever play the game again.
No doubt, no doubt. Don't get me wrong. I don't know what his contract looking like, how much guaranteed money he have if he was to quit today. But at the end of the day, it's about being alive and being healthy and even being there for your family. If something like this can just up and happen now, who's to say it couldn't up and happen again? I believe he should go through numerous tests to get his heart checked out, his arteries, and everything about his body checked out. I believe, he's a professional athlete. I'm sure he will. But for something like that to happen, I would be scared for him, or if I was him, I would be scared to get back out on that field.
Now, let me remind the Streets and Scholars listeners, it's not impossible to play professional sports with a heart problem, because I remember the Lakers had a brother at a Gonzaga named Ronnie Turiaf.
No doubt.
And I'm not sure if he actually had a heart transplant, but he definitely had some heart issues.
Yeah.
He played ball, but he was definitely not an elite player. He wasn't the type of player that was going to give you 48 minutes every night. But nonetheless, he still was a professional athlete with some heart condition.
No doubt. And we rooted for him, man, but it was always scary watching him play,
It was.
Yeah, it was always scary watching him play. I remember the guy, he was pretty good, But yeah, it seemed likely that, he may have to step away from the game.
Yeah, when Ronnie Turiaf was drafted, they found out that he had some heart problems just like right after he signed his contract. He didn't even play any games as a professional yet, but he went through whatever surgeries that he had to go through. I'm trying to think if he actually had a transplant, but I mean, he had a cool career. He was a decent athlete, but if I was in Ronnie Turiaf's circle, I would have just said, bro, life is too important than risking it on the basketball court.
No doubt, but at the same time, if, they say exercise keeps the heart healthy. If they say exercise, keep the blood flowing through the heart, then basically what he's actually doing is just going out there and getting exercise. Now, the NBA was brutal, a little more brutal than it was back then. You could catch a vicious elbow to the chest, to, send that thing into a malfunctioning, but I do feel what you're saying, though, 100%.
Now, even though you coached football for many years in the early did you coach in the 90s, or this was all in the early 2000s?
99 to 2004.
Yeah, so you had a nice career there as a coach, and you coached a lot of kids. If you were to have kids today, because now you know more about the game in 2023, and Happy New Year to everybody that's listening. This is our first episode of the new year. Would you still expose your kids as 5, 6, 7-year-olds to the sport of football?
Well, don't forget, Alex, I got 2 grandsons that play right now. They 7 years old. They play tackle football. They both played the SoFi Stadium, the same stadium that the Rams and the Chargers play at for their little league Super Bowl. I do have 2 sons that coach these teams, and I'm on my son's helmet about doing what I did, because it's a lot of coaches out here who didn't play before, who don't understand the risk. They want these kids to go out here and hit hard like this, but you got to teach them how to do it. It's still a dangerous sport. They do have better equipment. The helmets are, more manufactured better than what we had. But at the same time, if you're not coaching the kids, Alex, the appropriate way to make a tackle, the appropriate way to never put their head down when they make a tackle, if you're not teaching them these things, they can go out there and easily get hurt. So we don't live by, being scared to do things, but we also want to make sure we do them in the correct way to prevent injury.
I mean, I've heard actual NFL players. I wish I had a list of names of NFL players that say that they don't even want their kids to play. So I asked that because there are actual professionals that have played the game for 10 years plus.
Oh, no doubt.
Don't want their kids playing the game.
My mother never came to one of my football games ever because she didn't want me to play. She didn't want me to play from the beginning. She didn't want me to play later on, And so I do get it. And I see a lot of professional players, Alex, who say they wouldn't let their kids play. They put them in other sports, basketball, softball, soccer, all these other sports. I don't want my kid playing football. But we have more data now. We have more. We didn't know what a concussion was. We didn't call it that, or at least, when I was coming up playing, they didn't call it a concussion. You get knocked out, you go over to the sideline, get some water, and a few plays later, you get back in the game. And that was the same with the NFL. That's why they having a lot of these injuries and lawsuits that's coming up about old injuries, because they feel the NFL neglected to, take responsibility for some of the hard hits that they took, same way as boxing. But for the people who don't want their kids to play football, hey, man, I'm totally with them if that's the choice they want to make.
Yeah, I was also thinking about boxing. I used to box at this gym in East LA when I was a teenager, and my pops always used to say, you don't want a life as a boxer.
Yeah.
You don't want a life as a boxer. And I used to think, it's fun.
Yeah.
But he would always say, this is not the life. It's brutal. And eventually I stopped doing it, not because of him. It just got, I think I got disinterested in it. But if my kid came at me and was like, hey, I want to be a boxer, I'd be like, hell no.
See, I'm the same way.
I don't want you going to that life.
Right.
Even though you can probably make some money, maybe get rich if you're good, I still wouldn't want that risk taken by any of my kids.
No doubt. I'm the same way when it comes to boxing. I'm different towards football, and it's no different for some. But for me, boxing, definitely, I would try to discourage them or, get them to understand the consequences of taking all them hits. And so I get it. I feel you.
So you think boxing is a little more dangerous than football?
I do. I believe so because you're constantly taking hits to the head. Even if you're wearing headgear, you're taking punches to the head. You're taking jabs, man, and you're doing it every time you get in the ring. It's not just one. You can go out and play a football game and never have a head-to-head with somebody, especially the new way they have them tackling. I think a lot of the head injuries now are coming from the helmet hitting the ground and we playing in turf, not so much the hits anymore because, you leave with your helmet now. It's a fine and a penalty. So, but boxing, man, every time you get in that ring, bro, you're going to get hit in the head in some form.
Now, when I used to box, we always used to have to wear headgear in competition. I'm not so sure how much that headgear really protects you because when you get hit hard, you still feel it,
No doubt, it definitely does, and but you taking jabs to the mouth and you taking jabs to the side of the head, and a hard enough headgear or not, man, can cause some type of trauma. And the thing about it is, at least with a helmet, I believe it's less impact on the brain itself, and that's just what I feel about it.
Yeah, and I want to apologize to all the listeners from last week, man. The audio got messed up. I don't know what happened to the audio. My phone just rang, and that was OG Elgin from Brim, one of the co-founders of Harvard Park, Six Deuce Brim. Back in the day they called it LA Brims.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But today we know them as the Six Deuce Harvard Park Brims. So my phone was ringing. That was OG Elgin. I don't know what he wants, but I'll tap in with him a little bit later. And we just chopping it up here about sports, man. We're hoping a full recovery for the brother from the New York Buffalo Bills. What's his name again? Damar Hamlin.
Yeah.
Hey, whenever I think of the Buffalo Bills, I think of that Ice Cube line. I won't I won't lose like the Buffalo Bills, something like that. Remember they went to the Super Bowl 4 times in a row and lost all 4 of them.
No doubt. That's back in the Jim Kelly days.
Yeah.
Man. They had a decent squad. They got a decent squad this year, though.
And that's a terrible record, though, to have. You got 0 rings out of those 4 Super Bowl visits.
No doubt.
But, man, we're hoping Damar Hamlin makes it through. I think you said he was only 24 years old?
24, man.
Oh, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, man. I wanted to talk about, everyone's talking about Gunna, YSL, Young Thug. It seems like every day there's a new situation in that case. I think other people are taking deals now after Gunna took a deal. But I want to tap in with my boy Madd Ronald because he was I guess you could say part of a RICO before the YSL RICO. This was probably 2 years ago in Georgia. Everybody knows Madd Ronald on the internet. He was doing his thing. He was doing his little podcast. He would always go online and give his commentary here from Los Angeles, but somehow he got caught up in the Georgia RICO. It's crazy.
No doubt. 46 man indictment, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they called it Operation Caged Doves.
Man, that's crazy, man.
It is crazy, man. I'm just glad that it's a BS case. I'm gonna tell you this straight up. I went through the whole indictment. Now I can't speak for the dudes from Georgia because of the 46 guys that you just mentioned, Def. At least 43 of them are from Georgia.
No doubt, and I want to back up a little bit, and because I think some of the Operation Cave Doves went over a few people's head. The case is based around the Georgia faction of the neighborhood Rolling 20 Bloods. So Cage Doves, Rolling 20 Bloods, you know. And when they call the 20s the Dubs, you know what I mean? So but that's crazy, bro, that 46-man indictment, man, like you say, 43, 44 of them are from Georgia, and they come get the big homie, that's crazy.
Yeah, he was just minding his business, living his life. He wasn't involved in any of the activities that the dudes in Atlanta, Georgia were doing. But, some of them did tap in with him on Instagram because they look at Los Angeles as like if you was to walk wherever, there's probably cross Atlantic in another city and you probably don't know none of them dudes.
Right.
But if you was to show up in that town, they treat you like a king.
No doubt, and the thing about it is it's so easy to get caught up like that because sometimes, when you go to the other towns and you meet the homies from other cities, they do show you all the love in the world. But at the same time, as soon as you take that picture with them, as soon as you go to the club with them, as soon as you do anything with them, now you're a part of, a conspiracy just based on, you being with them and you being from Los Angeles, Compton, Linwood area, or any town, in California, going to these other states. It gets ugly when the police get involved.
Yeah, and that the police be exaggerating all this stuff and they be trying to link things that there is no link. They take really, they look at social media and the internet and think that there's things going on that there's not. And I want to play a little bit of this press conference from 2 years ago where they nabbed Madd Ronald. He was the only person from Los Angeles that was taken into custody of all the dudes that they did take into custody. Take a listen to this.
We appreciate your commitment to right, and we appreciate your commitment to law enforcement.
This is the GBI,
this is a very
Georgia
complex
Bureau
case.
of Investigations.
You'll find it very interesting.
Same people that is doing
Involves
the
a lot of players.
YSL and
At this time, I'll
Gunna
turn
case.
things over to the GBI Director, Vic Reynolds.
Now
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm
BS.
Vic Reynolds. I'm the Director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and we're here this morning to announce the return of a major indictment in Upson County. Before we do that and give you some details, it's my first very distinct honor and pleasure to be able to introduce to you today the Governor of the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp. Most of you may know this, but as part of Governor Kemp's both campaign platform and his administration was the stopping and dismantling of criminal street gangs in the state of Georgia. And not only do we have a governor who talks that talk, but we have a governor who walks that walk. I will tell you, on behalf of law enforcement, for us to be in a position we are today to, at the culmination of a virtual year-long investigation resulting in some details I'll give you in a moment, and to have the governor and the first lady come down here to support us is just a tremendous statement in support of the men and women in brown and blue and the agents both on the state and federal level. So I certainly want to take a moment to thank them. So before I give you a lot of details about the case today, it's my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce to you the 83rd Governor of the state of Georgia, Mr. Brian Kemp.
Can you believe how big of a deal they're making this? They got the governor, the GBI head.
Thank you, Vic, for that, and I'm honored to be here.
And I just want everyone to know this is all BS that we're listening to. This is from 2 years ago.
All the professionals that we have in the room that have worked day and night literally on this case and many others to get us to this point today. I know the First Lady has been mentioned, but her and our girls are strong supporters not only of law enforcement and our men and women serving in armed services, but all the folks that are working with them side by side every day, our first responders and our prosecutors and a lot of other people, quite honestly, that aren't mentioned that are all part of this whole team. So I want to thank you guys for that, as well as our First Lady for being here. I did just want to mention our Attorney General, Chris Carr. There is no greater team player in the state of Georgia than Chris Carr when it comes to stopping street gangs and going after drug cartels and ending human trafficking. It's something that he has worked on for a long time. Chris, I want to thank you for your support, not only of my administration's agenda, but all that the First Lady's been working on with human trafficking. He's been in the trenches for a long time, rarely asked for recognition, but is just a great team member, and we appreciate you. I know Senator John Kennedy's here this morning, who is also a strong supporter of what we have going on today, the gang task force, the support of that in the state budget, as well as the chairman and a lot of other local elected officials that I know very well that are in the community and that I've gotten to know, and certainly with Sheriff Kilgore and Dix and Chief Richardson. We appreciate all of your leadership on the ground. And of course, the DA Broder, thank you for a great job that you're doing.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. How they even got the senator in there.
Yeah, they got a whole bunch of people. I'm gonna put a link to this video in the show notes, but they got about 20 people standing behind, and then at some point they start talking about Madd Ronald.
The young lady, I believe, started talking about
Southern. Let me fast forward to.
Also, I mentioned Senator.
They spent about 20 minutes thanking everybody.
Assembly that have supported.
But
that just because we're having.
Let's see. Here we go.
The case here in this county. We're very proud of our partnership with DA. Georgia Department of Corrections is a partner that works with us.
All right, they're just like patting everybody on the back.
He and that group, under the direction of General Cardin, do a tremendous.
Let's get to the
and prevention, felony murder, and 4 counts of conspiracy.
All right, so they have like one murder in this whole case, which has nothing to do with Ronald, by the way.
There's an additional 59 counts of the violation of the Georgia Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act, the Gang Act here in Georgia. You may have heard us say before, it's one of the most powerful tools that the legislature has ever given law enforcement, and we certainly appreciate their willingness to do that. There are multiple counts of trafficking in methamphetamine, trafficking in heroin, multiple counts of possession of firearm during the commission of a felony, possession with intent to distribute marijuana, possession by felony, convicted felons in the possession of a firearm, financial transaction card fraud.
All right, so they're going to name all the crimes.
The agents
they had a whole bunch of charges
into criminal activity.
Let's get to the
counties and through other parts of the department. The Georgia Department of activity of criminal street gangs will not be stopped by the state agency.
Well,
third generation.
I'm actually tired of listening to this, but you get the sense they actually mention Madd Ronald's name.
Yeah, it was a lady in there. It was a lady.
It was the lady that says the name?
Yeah, see if you can get to the lady.
Yeah, let me get to the lady. Because I really think we need to highlight the way that law enforcement exaggerates what's going on the streets. Here we go.
Morning.
Here goes the lady. Is this the one?
Bet y'all were surprised to get an invitation to Upson County this morning, but we certainly welcome you here.
Let's see here.
My name is Marie Broder. I am the district attorney for the Griffin Judicial Circuit. I want to start by thanking Governor Kemp. Thank you so much for your fight against criminal street gangs. It should be inspiring for the rest of the country, what he's done, and the encouragement that he continues to give. I also want to thank Attorney General Carr. Thank you for your support. You'll never know how much we appreciate you. And Director Reynolds, wow, your team is just incredible. I can't say enough about Jarrett Ursher and John Melvin, Mike Carlson, and your agents that are on the ground fighting this fight. And make no bones about it, it is a fight. and my local law enforcement leaders, Sheriff Barry Babb, Fayette County Sheriff, Chief Mike Richardson, Sheriff Darrell Dix, Chief Gray. I cannot say thank you enough. I know that you stand behind me, and I appreciate it, and you stand behind my people in this office, and your men and women that are boots on the ground fighting this fight, thank you to them. I also cannot say thank you enough to the lead GBI agent on this case and his team. They spent countless hours pouring into data, investigating these individuals who were committing violent crime. Thank you. And to my team, standing here, thank you for all of your hard work. As you all have heard, this was truly a group effort. It was important to me because I've served this community, Upson, Pike, Spalding, and Fayette County for many years. I have seen firsthand the suffering and the evil that gangs inflict on our community here. They thrive by targeting those who are often overlooked, promising easy money and often delivering nothing but a criminal record and a lifetime of regret. They are violent criminals that deprive our community of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But through the hard work of our law enforcement officers who truly came together as a united front to take down these violent gang members, and thanks to a governor who understands the threat that this criminal element poses in our community, we stand ready to send a message to those of you who commit organized crime. Don't come here. The Griffin Judicial Circuit is my home and it is my hometown. In my opinion, it is the greatest circuit in the state. And as your district attorney, I will do whatever it takes to protect this place that we call home. That is why I have partnered with all of these agencies to bring this case to an Upson County grand jury. You see, over the past several years, I have watched as gangs infiltrate our circuit. It is time to drive them out. Gang members, this is for you. Make no mistake, if you choose to commit crime in the Griffin Judicial Circuit, whether you wield the gun yourself or direct another to wield it in your place, we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. No matter how many miles we must travel, we will find you. Justice will not be denied. Director Reynolds is right. We will extradite Madd Ronald Chatman and those others that have been indicted across the United States.
I'm going to put a link down there for those who want to check that out. Now, that was from 2 years ago. I mean, they said that these guys committed every crime in the book.
Right.
They put Madd Ronald as the ringleader of all these dudes.
No doubt.
And I just got a word that Madd Ronald decided to take a deal on this case after looking at 20 to 30 years in prison.
Well, the thing about it is, you know, he had a couple people on this case that went to trial before him that got 40 years. The young lady, I listened to that interview, she made sure that she mentioned Madd Ronald. You know, they said that he was apprehended, you know, yesterday, as of when this video, that clip was took. You know, they all applauded. You know, he's in Los Angeles County Jail at that time, and you know, they all clap. You know, Madd Ronald, you won't be, you know, causing terrorists in our town no more. You know, and to think that, you know, after 27 months he been sitting there, Alex, that they didn't have as much evidence as they thought they had.
They actually had absolutely zero evidence against Madd Ronald. And again, I ain't speaking, when I say this is a whole BS thing, I'm not saying that there's other people from Georgia that did whatever they did. I'm just speaking on what Madd Ronald's role was in this case. A brother that lives 2,000 miles away and doesn't know none of these folks, but the ones that he does know is just through social media, through DM and through Instagram, and that's it.
Right. You know, I believe he might have knew one person.
Oh, yeah. There's one dude from L.A.
that moved to Georgia and been down in Georgia, and he's the only person he knew. But at the same time, you know, he hadn't been down there causing no ruckus. You know, it was basically him tapping in on Instagram, little homies that knew he was from Los Angeles, want to hook up with him on social media and things of that nature, and but they didn't have nothing, man.
No, they didn't, and all because of him having phone conversations, which they recorded. They recorded every single phone conversation he has, and none of those phone conversations talked about criminal activity. Not one single one. And it was getting to the point where it's time to go to trial. It's time to go to trial, and they had really no evidence against him. But the state of Georgia works differently. We've never been, charged there, so we don't really know how it goes. But at the end of the day, Ronald decided to take a deal, man.
No doubt. I mean, you know what, and I say this all the time. People hear me saying it, man. Sometimes, man, even when you're not guilty, just to get out these people's face, man, or keep from getting railroaded in a certain way, because they can put you in a position and make it seem like you're guilty. All that press conference, all that money that they spend in investigation, you put an all-white jury up there because that's exactly what he was going to have down there in that small town in Georgia. How could he win? Black gang member, ex-gang member from Los Angeles down here with the gang that's down here actually, functioning and maybe really selling drugs, just not him. But when they put him at the top, bro, and say he was the leader, what are these people supposed to believe, Alex?
I know. If you put a whole bunch of older white folks that are born in the 1950s and early 1960s, and you trust the law enforcement in your state and in your county, and they tell you that these guys are monsters, you're going to believe that.
No doubt, and that's why he took the deal to keep from, maybe having to. But let me ask you this. Did he actually take a deal, or did he go to trial and the judge sentenced him to what he got because probably the judge knew it was some bullshit case himself?
No, he never went to trial.
Oh, okay.
Never went to trial. He's been sitting in there for over 2 years. I think 27 months he's been sitting in there. Mm-hmm. And he has not went to trial, and he hasn't even really been seen. He hasn't been outlined his evidence. All the evidence against him hasn't even been outlined in a way where he can say, okay, I see what they're talking about.
Right.
So eventually they started to offered him an 18-year deal. And I got a phone call here with Ronald that I want the people to hear. I'm gonna just see if I could pull it up. But they offered him an 18-year deal. That's not really a deal when you didn't do nothing.
Right, no doubt.
And then they offered him a 10-year deal. And I would agree. I would also say that that's not a deal if you didn't do nothing. So at some point, they offer him a better deal. And let me play this phone call from Ronald.
Recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. You may begin speaking now.
What's up?
You're live with Streets and Scholars, Ronald. Tell everybody who you are and where you at right now.
I'm Madd Ronald. Everybody knows Madd Ronald from Rolling 20 Blood, neighborhood BB. Right now I'm in the Upson County jail. I've been here since November 18, 2020. I was arrested on October 27, 2020 by a joint task force of the Los Angeles County Sheriff Department, the LAPD, Metropolitan Task Force, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Gang Task Force, and the FBI. And I was charged on the RICO.
So you
at this moment, I've been here for the last I'm on my 27th month right now. At this time, I'm on my 27th month in custody at this time right now. On December the 5th, I was sentenced to 5 years.
Okay, so
for RICO.
Let's back up real quick. So basically, you're charged with the same RICO in Georgia that the rappers Young Thug and Gunna were charged with after you were charged.
Yeah, we're all on. That's a different case, but I'm charged under the same crime, under basically the same thing, the Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organizations Act.
Okay, so were you aware that the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, did a big press conference announcing these arrests, and they specifically mentioned your name in that press conference?
Not at the time. I have since I've been in custody. I've been made aware of that, but I didn't know then. I didn't even know that I was under investigation or anything like this. I had no idea that I was under any kind of investigation, or I didn't know I was even on their radar.
All right, can you explain to the people how do you think you got on the radar, and why did they target you in that big indictment back in 2020?
2020. Well, phone calls that were connected to where the one person the people this person was talking to. And everything on the indictment is not criminal. There were some criminal acts on the indictment, but everything on the indictment was not criminal. Like my conversation with him, we never had any kind of criminal conversations. I'm not involved in these crimes. I never profited from these crimes. I don't have knowledge of any kind of crimes in Georgia. The only thing about it was the fact that when they try to make it sound as if we got this big old network, because on the indictment they used two ways that they specified it. They specified it and they used the word criminal street gang, and they specified it by also using the word enterprise, as if we had some kind of major enterprise going. And I don't know about what nobody else had going on. I never received $1 for nothing. Wasn't involved in nothing. Everything and anything that I know, have knowledge of, I didn't even have knowledge of the actual crime that the little homie went to jail for, but he was actually in jail for. I know what he was in jail for, but I don't know the specifics of the crime. Because we never had a conversation about none of that there. You see what I'm saying? So,
Okay, real quick.
What did you say?
You said you took a deal on December 5th for 5 years. Can you explain to our listeners what were you facing, and why did you decide to take the 5-year deal rather than just fight the case?
Okay, initially when I spoke with my lawyer told me that the deal was 18 years. Now, mind you, I never committed a crime, like I said. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I'm from Los Angeles. I'm down. They came to get me and brought me to the South. Now, the thing about it was I never fought extradition. I didn't fight extradition because I never committed a crime, because I thought that I would see a judge get this cleared up in a matter of days. Because typically, the way the Los Angeles court system works in LA County, I would have a preliminary hearing within 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, they would have to weigh the evidence and come to a determination of whether or not I committed a crime or not, whether we move forward with this and take this to Superior Court. Once I get to Superior Court, then we would have, after arraignment, we would have a pre-trial. That's going to make a determination of whether or not we have enough evidence to go to trial, to where I never had a preliminary hearing or a pre-trial. So basically, when I went from an arraignment for a Superior Court, 21 months later, I was sitting in the courtroom in trial with picking the jury. Now, when we got to picking the jury pool, when we went through the panel at 12 people, we went halfway through the jury. The first panel, there was one black person in that pool, and he was disqualified because he worked for the district attorney's office in some form or fashion. Then, in the second jury panel, there was 3 black women, and I think that I heard that at least 2 of them were disqualified from the jury pool. So basically, I didn't feel that I would get a fair trial because of the fact that, like, I'm in the South, man. And I heard from stories I've heard, from what I hear from people around here in jail, black men don't do good with white juries down here. At the point, when what they did when I entered the courtroom, my lawyer, the judge asked my lawyer, he said, you told him the deal, right? He said, yeah. He said, you understand your deal is 18 years? I said, yeah. He said, okay, well, this is what's going on now. Since you don't take the 18 years, that you're looking at 40 years. So when he said that I was looking at 40 years, I thought about that, and I was like, man, I'm sitting thinking to myself about dying as an old man in prison. Then, my lawyer, later on in the proceedings, after we got halfway through the jury pool, picking the jury pool, my lawyer and the district attorney, they actually had two people from the district attorney's office in there. But the main person, my lawyer and that person, they were having a conversation, and my lawyer came to me and said, well, my lawyer's willing to, the district attorney's willing to offer you a deal, and the cap on that deal, the time you was served, would be no more than 10 years. And I was like, damn, 10 years. He said, yeah. He said, but the judge might meet you halfway. The judge might meet us halfway. He might even with 5. And I thought about that, and I said, wait, I've been down 2 years. So if I've been down 2 years, and if I got 5 years, that means that I'm practically halfway done, or 3/4 done with that sentence already. So when I thought about that, I said, well, I can see light on the other side. Even though I was nervous, thinking to myself that I might get 10 years and stuff. You know what I mean? But I said that would be 18 years. That would be 40 years. So when I told my lawyer that, okay, we can do that. The judge gave me 5 years. So now I've got 5 years. I've been in custody since this is my 27th month in custody, January 2023. So figure I'm probably looking at maybe another year. Probably at the longest, probably 18 months.
Did you ever?
Know what I mean?
Did you ever get a chance to examine the evidence that that Georgia had against you and what they would have used against you if you was going to go to trial?
No, I haven't. Like I said, there was no pre-trial. There was no preliminary hearing. That was the thing. You know what I'm thinking is this is what we would be doing in the court of law in like Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, my lawyer would have had the opportunity to dispute the evidence. And you know what I mean? They would have to weigh the evidence right there before me and my lawyer and come to determination if they have a crime, if they have enough to take me to trial, if they have enough to take me to Superior Court. They never did any of that. I went from my arraignment for Superior Court around March 13th of 2021. Sat here all that time, all the way up until December the 5th, 2022, and I went straight. And I went to trial. There was nothing else. I've only been in the courtroom 3 times since I've been here. You know, on those 3 times, when I first got here, within the first 24 hours, I went to what they call first appearance. Then I went to arraignment, and then I went to trial. So other than that, I haven't spent any time in the courtroom. This is a whole other world down here. You know what I mean? They considering, you know, this where I'm at. I'm looking at this, man. I'm in a place, man, where they got streets down here named after Confederate generals. So you could imagine that this is a place right here that during the Civil War, the whites down here, they fought to keep their slaves. You know what I mean? From what I'm hearing from the way it sounds down here, from talking to a lot of you guys here, the Ku Klux Klan is taking off their white robes and they put on black robes. They're the judge sitting on the stand now. So you know what I mean? I felt that the best thing for me to do would be to take that 5 years and be able to walk that 5 years off within a year or two. You know what I mean? Because of the fact that basically that means sitting in jail for the next 40 years, becoming an elderly old man, sitting there just stuck in prison.
Well, now, when the GBI did their press conference, I think they made a big deal about a music video that was shot by some of the Atlanta dudes, and I'm not sure if they shouted your name out or if they mentioned you in that music video. But did that have any role in this whole case?
No, I don't know nothing about it. I heard nothing about the music video. With the video they were trying to use against me was the video that I did with Chatman. And that video was nothing criminal about it. It was more of a documentary, you know what I mean, something based on the work that I was doing in Los Angeles. And it wasn't nothing involved with any kind of crimes or anything of that nature. So, you know what I mean? In reality, it's funny to me because of the fact that the way that they're coming after these people with these RICO, it seems as if they're practically violating the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. That's our freedom of speech. You know what I mean? In the video themselves, they saying that in my video where they got me, where they saying because I say I'm Madd Ronald from Rolling 20 Neighborhood Bloods, and they trying to say I'm using that as a, how do I say that? It's an anonymity, something like that. I can't think of the word they use, but some kind of word, you know what I mean, like a cohesive word to draw in gang members. But at the same time, those who watch the video, you know, they have a greater understanding of the fact that the video itself is done on the level of education, information, and giving an understanding of the work that was being done, the evolution of this inside the city of LA, because of the fact that, you know, basically, you know, we have to consider where we're at. A lot of people ain't out in the streets on the killing. OGs, there's a lot of OGs intervening and trying to bring about peace and stuff like that there. And that's the stuff that I'm discussing, going back to the community, providing resources, feeding people, trying to help people find jobs and get into school and get off the corners. Basically, that's the stuff that's being discussed in that video.
Now, had you ever visited Atlanta prior to you getting charged with this case?
Nope. I've been through the airport. I've been through Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. That's the closest I've been in Georgia. Going to New York. When I was going to New York to visit my mother, you know, my family's in New York, so I traveled to New York after I've been through the airport here.
So were they trying to link you to you mentioned that there were 46 people named in that indictment. Most of them were from Georgia. Did you know any of these people from Georgia?
Not really. I've met some people on social media. I didn't know nobody. I know the one that was calling me, the homie was calling me is the one that I know. He was from Los Angeles. That's the person that I actually knew. You know what I'm saying? But by, you know, he like I say, 60% of the indictment was him connected to other people through the telephone. So now they got me at the top of the indictment. They got me at the top of the indictment because of my history. They got me at the top of the indictment because of my name, because of my background. You wrong, they put me at the top of the RICO and want me to be accountable for what everyone else is doing. And that's another reason that made me take the 5 years, because of the fact that they got some people on the RICO. Somebody had a murder on the RICO, there's robberies and stuff like that. These dudes are doing, but I ain't got nothing to do with it. But at the same time, I know that also they're trying to hold me accountable. And I'm not going to be sitting up there. The district attorney sat in court and during the jury selection and sat and I heard her tell the jury that she was pregnant. I said the last thing that I want is this pregnant white woman sitting there before an all-white jury. We're down in the South, and she's pointing at me, talking about gang violence, safety, and fear.
Now,
They won't make me.
if you were looking at 20 years and then it went to 18 and then it went to 10 and then it went to 5, did you start to figure like maybe these people really don't have any case against me because each offer is getting lower and lower and lower?
Well, the thing about it was this. I got 3 co-defendants that went to trial already. 2 of them got 40 years. 1 of them got 18 years. I'm at the top of the RICO. So I thought about all of that there and took all that into consideration.
There are 6
But at the same time, I also had to take into consideration the chance that how much do I want to play with these people, because of the fact that okay, I got a chance of beating them, but then I also got a chance of getting 40 years.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
You know what I'm saying?
well, you got 50 seconds left, man. What would you like to? I want to just give you that last minute. What would you like to let the people know?
Oh man, I just tell everybody, man, be safe, man. You know what I mean? A lot of people get on the telephones talking to people out of town and talking about all this gang stuff, talking about who they are. That's the type of stuff they build these RICO on. I'm finna while I'm down, man, I'm finna take my time to sit down and write, man. I'm writing a book, 50 years on the set, Evolution of the Blood Gang, Rise of the RICO Act, just to give this information that I've learned to those that are out there talking to people they're doing something big. Anyway, people have to know because of the fact they don't know the danger they put themselves in being in my position. But anyway, I'm going to let you go, man. I know that there's 15 seconds, so I'll give you a call back sometime in the near future, man. If I might go to prison tonight, but if I don't, I'll call you this week.
All right, man.
Be safe.
Keep your head up. Be safe.
The calling.
There you have it. That was Madd Ronald Chatman, tapping in from Upson County, Georgia. He just took a deal. He took a deal for 5 years on that RICO case that he got hit with back in 2020. It is the exact same RICO charge that the Georgia Bureau of Investigations hit Young Thug and Gunna with. And I'm about to tap in here with FG and get his whole take on this. And I mean, you've been in decisions where you've taken deals, and most of the time we want to avoid the trial because if you're found guilty, they're going to give you more time, basically.
No doubt.
And at the end of the day, I felt bad that he took this 5-year deal because I had a chance to tap in with the lawyers and tap in with some other people who had inside information, and everyone that had looked at Ronald's role knew he did absolutely nothing. So I'm like, man, we're going to fight this. We're going to fight this. We're going to fight this. So when he told me he took the 5-year deal, I felt like, damn, we could have fought this and won. But at the end of the day, I'm not the one that's going to do that time.
No doubt at all. You know, and I also want this to be a lesson for, you know, some of the gang member listeners out there, you know, some of the people out there with gang member kids or nephews or brothers, you know what I mean? This is a part of it. This is a part of just being affiliated with the gang. Madd Ronald got 5 years, was on a 46-man indictment, almost got 40, almost got 18 years just for being a member, you know, talking to people on the phone, you know. So for me, Alex, I understand, I get it. It's sad to say, but I'm glad he came out with the nickel. He was already down 27 months before he could even, by the time trial was even started. So I got his logic, but at the same time, man, they took this brother off the street. He was here in Los Angeles, you know, sent him down to Georgia, put him on a 46-man RICO that he has nothing to do with, changed his whole life just because he was a member, just because he had spoke with some guys on the phone, just because he had conversation with guys. And sometimes this is a part of the tragic game out there.
And I also want the listeners to know that Ronald ain't been in prison in 15 years. The last case he caught was 2005, a little bullshit ass little dope case. I think he did 3. He caught that case either 03, 04. He did 3 years and ain't been to prison since. So this last 15 years is the longest stint that he had never been to prison, which is a sign that he was done with that life. Prior to that, he had always been to prison,
No
go
doubt.
do 5 years, go do 6 years, do 8, always doing different bids. So for him to catch this case now is even more disappointing, because I knew him personally and I knew he wasn't with none of that BS anymore. So for the fact that Georgia can come in here and do that, I'm just highly disappointed.
No, you could be disappointed, but at the same time, the way they looking at it, Madd Ronald name did ring bells across the California for sure. As he says, he got down to Georgia, it rung bells down there. That's probably because all the little homies was talking about him. They had pumped his name up as he was the, basically the everything for the dubs out there. And the police got a wind of that. So recognition and a few phone calls from some homies down there, man, got him in a whole world of trouble. I'm just thankful that he came out with the 5, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is only going to be about another year to 18 months that he's got to do. But nevertheless, I mean, they've had bro in custody, since 2020, and there's a million other things I know he'd rather be doing than sitting in there on this BS case. Now, when he caught his last case 15 years ago, it was what it was. Right. He knew what he was doing. It was no big deal. But this hits differently, because you minding your business. You're on social media. Oh, you tapping in with these dudes. Oh, you the homie OG Madd Ronald, right? Yeah. And, oh man, we got a lot of love for you. Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, we got the hood down here too. Oh, okay, that's great. That's great. And that's all it is. Now, there was a dude from LA that did go down there that did catch a case. And all he did was call. They had regular conversations, nothing criminal. So I really want to get to the bottom of this. Even though he already took his case, I want to look through all his evidence. I want to bring his evidence to the internet, and I just want to show how easy it is, at least for the state of Georgia, how easy it is to get caught up in the case. And I don't think that it would have ever worked in California, because California got to sit there and line out the evidence.
No, you got to lay it all out.
Yeah, you got to lay it all out.
Yeah.
And even, what do you think with the Fed? But with a RICO Fed, you could easily get caught up into anything, because it's just a conspiracy.
That's it. And they can definitely just easily connect you, but they still have to have some form of evidence.
They lay it out, right?
They got to lay it out. The Feds, one thing I can say about them, you can't bring some faultiness in front of a judge. Yeah, you can. That conspiracy covers a wide range, but you would have had to do something. At the end of the day, okay, it's a phone count. You know what I mean? And they will give you that. You can't get 5 years on the phone count. That's basically just talking criminal activity on the phone. But it appears that he wasn't even talking criminal activity. For me, I didn't like the way that they put out, did all that grandstanding, the GBI, all the agencies that was involved, they had the governor on there. They had a senator in the room that day, and like I said, I listened to that. And if they go, you going to put a link to the thing, go look in there that she specifically said, and Madd Ronald, and went in on him. You're not going to come down here and, do this or that. And at the end of the day, I wonder what they felt like, when he did get the nickel. The sad part about it is, I don't care who you are, 5 years is a long time. I'm not going to sit here and act like 5 years is a cakewalk. I'm not going to say that. I'm just saying that to get 5 years and you didn't do anything, that's even worse. So don't get me wrong. I feel him. It's just, I hate to see him down there, in that kind of situation with a bunch of people on the case that he don't know. That could have went sour, because at the end of the day, what I had thought they was going to do is have one of them other dudes lie and say that and put him in a twist. Yeah. And that's why I say I'm glad he got the nickel, because he was at the top. They did a whole press conference about him. They could have took one of them dudes on a lower level, say, here, this what you going to say, and routed the homie, So I'm glad he can do that and get on back home and, and teach everybody else that, hey, man, stay off that phone, stay out of them other states with, chopping it up with these dudes, and all this starting gangs in other states. It's been being done, but at the same time, it ain't as cool as you think going down there, messing with them dudes.
Now, you just made me think about someone could have lied on him. But if someone was going to lie on him, or someone was going to rat out Madd Ronald, one of these 46 dudes, they would actually have to have information about Ronald in order to tell or snitch. None of these dudes, with the exception of one guy from LA, knew Ronald.
Well, the thing about it, that's why I go back and say I didn't call it a snitch, or I didn't call it telling, I called it lying. You know what I mean? Because they, I'm seeing agencies go as far enough to put information in another cat's ear to go get on the witness stand and tell, and I've seen it go all wrong too, so I don't put nothing past these people in order for them to get a conviction, I just don't, maybe the evidence was so just not there. They couldn't even do that. They couldn't even have on 46 men. Come on, man. If you at the top of indictment on the 46 men, you got 10 people coming with information. And in this situation, nobody came with none.
Nobody.
They didn't have any, Alex. You know what I mean?
And that's one of the reasons why I'm disappointed, because if Ronald was doing something so nefarious, somebody out of these 46 people would have been ratting him out.
Come on, man. It ain't 46 solid dudes on the case in life. Nowhere in the world, But and so that's what I'm saying. They didn't have nothing on him, and he still had to take a nickel. Man, that's cold.
Now I'm trying to figure out, did the GBI, is the GBI just misinformed and they don't understand how gangs work, or did they deliberately say we're gonna drag this LA dude into this case to make an example out of him?
Well, I believe that they'll go to great lengths in order to make themselves look a certain way as well. They wasted a lot of resources. You know what I mean? They had to get something out of it. You know what I mean? To just let him walk after we done put in all these resources. They named numerous agencies that they linked up with. You know what I mean? They spent a whole bunch of dollars, chasing these guys. And don't get me wrong, they don't even have all of them. I believe they only have 25 people in custody. I believe another 25 or something like that is on the run still, haven't even been caught. So, they wasted a lot of resources. They did all this grandstanding, man. And unfortunately, somebody did get punished on this case already. They did kind of stretch out a couple guys. But as far as Madd Ronald was concerned, a guy who really didn't have nothing to do with this, he shouldn't have had to take that nickel. But I do understand why he did.
Now, when you were talking about sometimes people catch a federal charge over the phone, I've heard that sometimes the feds will take a phone conversation and put their spin to it. So if I called you up, F, and said, yeah, man, can you bring me 2 of those twisty donuts, man? Again, those ones that you brought last week was real delicious. Mm-hmm. They'll say, nah, they're talking about drug transactions, and I'm actually really talking about twisty donuts. And they can get in there and tell a jury, this is code talk for drug transactions. And there's no way to prove what I'm talking about, whether I'm really talking about donuts or not.
Right.
And I've heard people get 5 years, 6 years just for a phone call.
No doubt. And I've seen the paperwork on that, and the homie swear. Now, this the whole thing about it. I couldn't sit here and say that he was telling the truth, but he had no reason to lie. He already had his nickel. He showed me his paperwork. He said F, and I forgot what the term he was using. He's like, man, I was telling my son, you know what I mean? And they say they was move the kilos, you know what I mean? He said, bro, I was telling my son, but at the end of the day, man, he was on a big 21-man indictment, and he took that phone count, but he swore up and down, which I'm not saying he lied. He said, because he didn't have no reason to me, you know what I mean? And he's like, if I wasn't, they just said they just automatically told the people, oh, those are kilos he was talking about. Never caught me with no dope, never caught anything, you know what I mean? And he took a phone charge, man, just to get on and get up out of there. So you're 100% right that I have read paperwork, and the homie said that it wasn't what they were talking about, you know what I mean? So I don't know how often that happened. I'm sure it happens all the time. The feds don't want to let you go. They throw that phone charge at you. You look at 20, then you hear 5, and you just jump on it.
Now, I remember reading an article about 5 years ago where the feds wanted to hire black folks to help them translate Ebonics talks from their monitoring of, organizations, whether it's LA or different cities, so that they can get a better understanding on what somebody is talking about. Like, for example, everybody knows that a bird means a kilo.
Right.
So if you're saying a bird over the phone, there's no way around that.
Right.
But the feds think that people are being really clever about using different words, so they want to hire people that are from the hood, but they're not part of any crime group,
right,
to be their interpreters to help them decipher what these phone calls really mean. And I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. Y'all really trying to send people to prison over conversations.
Yeah, but I think a lot of them got it wrong too, because I believe every neighborhood had their own specific little code words for certain things, and I just believe that's something people did, because I used to go over to the Hoovers, man, and they had called it a whole different thing in codes, I never heard of that. I'm even asking, what's that, so to bring in an interpreter to think you're gonna, like you saying, unless it's some broad range something, that's being said, man, you can't interpret every little slang that somebody makes up, So, but they still will do it,
Now, I wanted to bring it back to the YSL thing because we talked about Gunna last week. He took basically the exact same 5-year deal that Madd Ronald took. And if Gunna was such a menace to society, they didn't want to give him bail, he's a threat to the witnesses, he's all of this stuff, then all of a sudden he's free to go home. It just goes to show you that even parts of this YSL case, I'm not saying all of it is, because I know there's a murder in there,
right,
and there's some other crimes in there, but for the most part, I believe there's like 29 people in this indictment. At least Gunna is an example of how they really didn't have a case on him. He did an Alford plea, which basically means, yeah, maybe I'm guilty of something, but no, I'm going to maintain my innocence. He's free to go home. What happened to the 20 years that Gunna's supposed to get?
Well, what happened to all the, if he get out of jail, it's going to, havoc could break loose, and, these guys are the leaders, and things will happen if you gave them bail, so you skipped bail, you know what I mean, and sent them straight home when, you said they was a menace. And I think a lot of this stuff flies over people's head, Alex, you know what I mean? So if y'all don't sit here and see over some of the bullshit that these people are doing, making people believe, or let me be frank, I in the comments, I see I'm accused of sometimes people think I'm trying to aid and abet the criminals.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm just going to call a spade, Alex. Robbers rob, killers kill. I'm not naive to the fact that this is what goes on in life. So when you on these cases and you go tell it's 26 people, you go tell somebody that such and such told on you this information. They're not even sure if this information is true, but just so happen it do be true. You know what I mean, man? He told you did this, man. What you gonna do? Then he starts saying, no, well, such and such did such and such. You know what I mean? That's how it works. When dudes keep their mouth shut, they don't have as much evidence as people think. It goes to showing the Madd Ronald situation where they did a whole press conference. It goes to showing the YSL where the GBI was on every, TV and platform, screaming out that these guys are going down. We have, a multitude of evidence, and come to find out they don't. Let a dude go home after... How old Gunna was in there? 9-10 months?
Yep.
So you let him go home, and it goes to show sometimes you just gotta kick back. You know what I mean? You gotta kick back, man, and just let the process play out. Stop believing everything you hear on TV. But we do all prejudge, but we all need to stop that just because we hear something on TV and wait till the facts come out.
Yeah, and it looks like they're just trying to. Now it seems like they're more and more focusing in on Young Thug. On what's bro's name? Jeffrey something.
I thought it was Jeffrey Williams or something.
Yeah, it seems like they're just gonna just laser in on him now because they're giving deals. After we spoke about the Gunna deal, a couple of more bros took some deals now, and it looks like they're just focusing on Thug. And I just want people to really pay attention to this case because there's no way. I don't even know Young Thug. I don't know nothing about these dudes, but I know the law and I know these cases. There's no way that Young Thug has done all these things that's in the indictment that they're alleging.
No doubt, not to mention, they already threw out a portion of evidence on Young Thug's case. Everything they found in that arrest warrant that they had, that wasn't official. Judge threw out everything they found in it: drugs, money, and guns. You know what I mean? You cannot use none of that. So they do have supposedly some other evidence. I'm gonna tell you what the difference between Young Thug and Madd Ronald is. Young Thug may have a small piece of guilt in here. You know what I mean? So they're gonna, because they put all the energy to Young Thug, they want a grandstand. They're gonna do everything they can to get somebody to get on the stand to take Young Thug down because they done put so much around him. If they were able to do that with Madd Ronald, they would have. They realized that they couldn't. If it was one shred of evidence more on Madd Ronald, they would have did him like that and had people come get on the stand and say, we got the notorious Los Angeles gang member who came down here and started this notorious gang, blah, blah, blah. You feel me? So when the Young Thug case, the more that I look at it and the more that I'm seeing, it's going to take some hell of something for them to just get thug like that. You know what I mean? He may go to prison, sure, but not with the life sentence or the 40 years or something like that. I don't believe he may not have that kind of they may not have that kind of evidence to convict him of that kind of time.
Now, at this point in the YSL Young Slime case, we don't know who's going to come testify against other dudes at this point.
Right.
And I know that Gunna made a statement that you said was not helpful to any of the defendants, and I agree with that. But we don't know if he's going to come to court and start pointing the fingers at people, even though that statement that I read last week said he wasn't going to do that. Right. He might end up doing that.
And then again, he may not. They may not need him. You know, they may not didn't have a bunch on him anyway. You know, from my understanding, you know, they didn't. You know, they didn't have no whole bunch, but because he's partners with Thug, they probably kept him in there. They saw that he wasn't gonna roll on Thug. Yeah, he said the things that he said in that statement, you know, that I definitely didn't agree with. But at the end of the day, if he's out of it all the way now, he didn't go all the way and maybe told that something that buries young Thug. You know what I mean? He took that little piece on the chin. But at the end of the day, it's going to probably be somebody else, Alex, to get up there and knock him down.
For sure. Well, I'm going to keep my eye on this Young Thug case now that this Tory Lanez case is over. Now, Tory Lanez is going to get sentenced later this month. Real quick before we wrap this up, he's looking at a max 22 or 23 years. I think he's going to get somewhere between 5 and 8. I don't see him getting maxed out. What do you think the judge is going to sentence him to?
You know what? He here in Los Angeles, man. He was out in that. Oh, he in CCB. Yeah, I'm thinking about 7. I'm thinking he should get about, not should, but he may get about 7. They could try to make an example out of him, you know, but they may not.
And I want everyone to know I'm the one that dropped all the exhibits from that case, including the apology phone call that the prosecution called it. I didn't like the way they called it the apology call. Nothing about the shooting was mentioned in that call, but I do understand some people saying, what else is he apologizing for? He must have been the shooter. I get it. But yeah, I dropped all the evidence on that case. And then the Kelsey Harris statement that she gave, you know, two or 3 months prior, I dropped that.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people stealing your content though, bro. You know what I mean?
But a lot of people are more convinced now that he was the shooter just based on some of the evidence. And it's a little unfair to jump to that conclusion because you didn't get to hear the cross-examination by the defense attorney on that evidence. So I just want people to think about that. The defense had a pretty good answer for everything that was presented. So just letting people know, don't rush to guilt just because you heard one call or one part of the evidence.
No, definitely no doubt. But I was disappointed in that phone call from jail.
He should have never made it.
Should have never made it, bro. And I'm wondering, you know, and we catching a few people that's calling from jail and getting caught up on these phone calls. Hey, you don't do it.
All he needed to do was call my dude to bail me out, and that's it.
Right. If I needed to go make an apology, I call you from when I get home.
Yeah.
You know, call you when I get out, you know, or something like that. But that phone call right there probably hurt him a lot.
It definitely did hurt him. The phone call alone, I don't think it's a big deal. But you had the apology phone call, the apology text, and Kelsey's statement, and you start layering all of this stuff. You know, I could see the prosecution's case. I ain't mad that the jury came back guilty. I don't believe this was a conspiracy by Jay-Z, Rock Nation, or anybody else. Hey, he created some of the evidence that was used against him, and real street dudes would have never done some of that stuff that he did.
No doubt, you know. But like you say, some of these dudes, you know, shit get fuzzy. You know, not to mention, you know, I know some solid dudes, Alex. But when they're intoxicated, it's not that it's not that they're not solid. It's just they slipping, you know, and they doing stuff that, you know, could cause a demise or cause them, you know, jail time just because you're not in your right mind. So, you know, maybe if he was thinking clear, he could have made better decisions. But at the same time, you know, by them being that intoxicated, man, you know, just could have, you know, it went the way it did.
All right, man. Well, he's getting sentenced later this month, and they're going to be picking a jury for the YSL case this week. Where can they find you at, F?
You can hit me up at F General 1 on Instagram. I'm still over there at YouTube at FG Unleashed. Tap in with me. Alex, remind us when Eric Holder gets sentenced again.
I believe that's going to be January 27th.
Okay.
End of the month, and he's getting sentenced by a black judge. David Hereford, and we'll see he has any mercy on bro for shooting Megan Thee Stallion in the foot. So if you haven't seen the evidence, I got it all on Street TV. I even got a link at streetgangs.com with every single piece of evidence as a PDF file. You can download that, check it out, and look for yourself. But don't be too judgmental by the evidence, because you don't get to hear the cross-examination. You don't get to hear the defense attorney. And if you got any questions, tap in with me at Alex Alonso 101. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I should be getting my Street TV Instagram channel back in the next few days. Instagram reached out to me. They said they made a mistake.
Okay, cool.
So thanks for tapping in on another fire episode of Streets and Scholars.